The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
CBR Street Gang, this is Almighty. Standing by, over.
Hello, hello, hello. We're going to do a microphone test before we get the live stream rolling here in a couple minutes. Go ahead and let me know if you can hear me across the various chats, that being YouTube, Twitch, and x.com. I can only, plugin is only good for the YouTube chat right now. X still needs to work on integration, and of course Twitch chat is broken, at least on the plugin. So go ahead and let me know in YouTube if you can hear me okay. And we do have some private streams running for those that cannot access those websites because of their location. Go ahead and let me know if you can hear me over there as well. And then we're going to get started in about 2 minutes or so. All right, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. I sound like Patrick Mahomes. No, I don't. No way. I mean, I can't tell unless I listen back, but yeah, I do have a bit of a cold, but no, I don't sound like the NFL star quarterback who sometimes sounds like Kermit the Frog. All right, cool. So, well, thank you for letting me know that you can hear me okay. We're going to get started in about a minute and a half here, and just going to set up a few things on the back end here, and we'll get rolling. All right, let's get the music under control here. All right, we'll get that paused on my side. And we're going to roll right into it. Hello and welcome to Market Madness Technical Analysis Wednesdays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is February 7th, 2024, and I am your host, Crypto Landy. As usual, we are going to start with Bitcoin today. And Bitcoin's had a fairly nice move in the early part of the traditional market trading session. So after New York market open, Bitcoin has moved back to the highs of its local consolidation range. I know that there's a lot of people getting pretty excited about this, but until we see a close above this high here at 43,872, so basically 43.9 to 44K, depending on your exchange, then I wouldn't be looking for too much more. It would just be a test of the tighter range highs here. Now, if it does get past there, I would keep an eye on the upper second standard deviation in the mid $44,000 region. So specifically above 44K, keep an eye on 44.5 or so. Now that is around these previous tops here. And if we did see Bitcoin beginning to close above there, I would raise the next target to this close open here at around $45,000 to the wick high at around 46. Above there, I'd be looking right back to the actual close open highs up here at $47,000 to the wick high around 49 to 50K. Now, if we do see Bitcoin starting to trade above that $49,000 wick high and, around $50,000 depending on your exchange as well, then I would be looking in the mid to low $50,000 for a test. Now, if Bitcoin does lose the basis band and this wick low specifically here at around 41,850, then I would be targeting the lower first in general, somewhere around the mid to upper $40,000 region. Currently, the lower first is coming in at just under 40,800. And, there is some close opens down here. There is some wicks as well in that area. If Bitcoin were to break down from there, I would start targeting the lower second, which is coming in at 39.5 to 6 still, which is right at the close open deviation low. And of course, below there, right back to that monthly wick there at 38,500, which was right into our monthly zone. So let's go ahead and take a look at support and resistance real quick over here on the Bitcoin in 60 seconds chart that I typically show on the shorts video or the shorts feed here on YouTube. And I typically highlight on the X Crypto Landy profile there. Now, Bitcoin is trading above this weekly and the upper first standard deviation. If it can remain above this weekly and the upper first right there at around 43,200 to 300, then I would look for it to continue to test this local high around 43.9 to 44K and above to that upper second and these overhead closes. And then, of course, above there, we have the monthly coming in at 45.5. And then above there, we're looking to the wick highs at 46K right in this big monthly zone between 45.5 and 47K, where we have the close opens up here of the deviation high above there. And I would start looking to that March 2022 monthly swing high at 48,240 to the wick high at 49 to 50K. Of course, you can see how this plays to the downside, right where that basis band is and this spike low. Well, that was right into the weekly historical support resistance area. Now, if it is lost, of course, that would be losing the weekly and the basis band. That would have wider implications to go test the bottom side of the smaller consolidation range prior to the deviation up and down into that lower first there around the mid to upper $40,000 region. And then, of course, the deviation low and a close by that lower second into this weekly monthly zone. Perfect spike in there for liquidity in late January. Excuse me. Now, if that area did not hold up, 37.7 at this weekly here is the next big support and resistance area. Of course, that would be a bearish reclaim of an area that was already tested on the monthly. So this 38.5 was resistance. It was short-term support in this zone in the weekly here after rejecting the weekly, and then it came back down for a retest and held as support. So if it was lost, I would generally be looking into this weekly at 37.7 to the next weekly below around 36 to 36.2 to 3. Yes, I am giving it a little bit of a wider range now. Not just the weekly at 36.2 to 3, but also 36K below there. And I generally be looking somewhere around the 35.5 to the monthly at 35,000 and weekly just below, which was another big support resistance flip. We saw it as resistance, retested beautifully as support, nearly, I think it was only 3 cents off of the actual support there. So very, very nice price action. Let's see how this fits in with some of the longer term time frames. So if we go over to the monthly, I do want to highlight that the upper first standard deviation is right there at that weekly that I was just talking about. So the upper first is at 36.1 to 2, but I would give it a range. So if Bitcoin were to start falling towards the upper first again on the monthly, that's going to be right around that weekly that I was just talking about, probably in and around 36K to the weekly at 36.2 to 3. Now, below there, you can see that the monthly basis band is coming in at $28,000. That is a big historical pivot. That's right around this wick low, which was coming in about $800 higher at 28.8. Of course, we did see initial resistance in this area as well that was flipped to support. Bitcoin then filled to both sides of that big area before moving on through in a major low fashion. That major low thus setting the prior major low down here at around 15.5 as a macro low. So that has already been in. That's not really an argument anymore. Anyone that thinks that it's not, well, I think they're just kind of fooling themselves with a little bit of copium because they may not have gotten in at those prices below that $20,000 region. Does that mean that Bitcoin can't go back down there? No, not by any means. It can still get retested. We have seen that in the past on many different assets and indices. One of the big things that we do want to keep an eye on is the monthly Stoke here, which is pivoted at 39,500, which is the deviation closing low down here. So this deviation closing low is going to be that big monthly pivot for February. So something to keep an eye on if Bitcoin did trade back down that way. As I struggle with my words here, my apologies. Let's go ahead and look at the daily here. The daily, it's showing some nice swings in this area, nice swing consolidation structure. So if we throw on a GAN swing indicator or any swing indicator, there's plenty of free ones under the indicators tab up here. If we were to kind of evaluate what's going on here, we had the nice move off the lows. We had a closing trend break. So we had, the lower highs and lower lows. And then we had higher high on a wick or a swing, and then higher high on a close as well. Nice higher low on a swing, lower high, higher low. Is it going to break out? Well, you're going to get a lot of triangle traders, looking at this as an ascending triangle, and that's probably playable, to be quite honest, if you did want to draw an ascending triangle on it. I'm not a pattern trader, as you guys know. I don't like pattern trading. I think that it's awful. But if you want to get a general idea of kind of where things might be headed on the low and high side of things, you can draw a triangle here. And just eyeballing it, it's roughly the size of this candle here that began it is about the mid range there between the wicks. And realistically, if you're going to leg that up, you're looking somewhere around $44,500. So that's probably going to be the target, just kind of eyeballing it there. Not going to get too deep into that. You guys can do that one yourselves if you'd like. If you want to learn how to do it, I'm probably not the guy that's going to teach you, because pattern trading has an extremely low hit rate. There are some good patterns. Ascending and descending triangles are pretty good sometimes, but it's really all about the divergences. And we can see that, Bitcoin doesn't really have much going for it in terms of divergence right here, and either the bear or bull side. Now, there is a case to be made that if it fails to break out and close above this guy here and get above that swing high, that it could throw a regular bear div locally if it fails to break. But, I want to see more than what I typically like 2 to 3, maybe more, to get, to start getting ready for longer term time frame daily reversals. At this point, it's just far easier to say, okay, if it drops the low here at around that 41.8, which is also a weekly, and the basis band, and it's going to turn momentum down, we'll look at that in a moment, then we're targeting generally the lows of the range to the deviation low. And if we break out above the top side here, we're generally targeting the highs of the range to the deviation high. It's pretty simple. Don't make it more complex than it needs to be. It is still looking like a range when evaluating the bands here. So until we see a close above that upper second at around 44.5, I'm not really looking for a run right to the top of the range. We need to see at minimum a closure above there. If we don't see a closure, well, what do you think happens? If it goes and tests the top here and it doesn't close above the upper second, that's a nasty rejection. You're probably going to see a reversal. Same for the downside. The lower second being right there at the closing low is actually a little bit more viable for the bears if they were able to push it outside of the range lows over here and in and around, the low 41 to upper $40,000 region. Then it is, it would be a viable area to look at. And again, we could see wicks all the way down below the actual monthly spike there at 38.5, but if it doesn't close below the lower second, it's probably going to be a rejection of a breakdown in that case, and likely lead to a daily reversal. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a long-term reversal. That's something that you have to evaluate day by day, and you have to evaluate trend with support and resistance and volatility, and then you can determine the momentum. And looking at momentum, well, it is in the overbought zone right now. We can see that the pivot is here at 43,300. So if Bitcoin closes above there, it can remain pointed up in the overbought zone. And typically that's where we see the biggest moves on most assets and indices. In this case, in the overbought and oversold zones or regions. And, things can hang out in these areas for quite a while. Again, this is a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. So this is not measuring the velocity or speed of RSI between the different reads. This is measuring close over close price action. So in this case, it is pointed back up. And more importantly, what you should be paying attention to is the timeframes between the daily and the weekly. So the weekly is also pointed down. Momentum pivot is at 47,500, so right around the highs there, above that monthly at 47K. Now, if Bitcoin is going to stay below and does remain below the upper first standard deviation here at 43,600 to, I would say, around 43.8, right around its local spike high, then the basis is still in play, which is coming in just below the wick low here of the range. It's coming in at where? $38,000. So if that area, of course, did break down, wouldn't be my first guess. I would expect Bitcoin to test into this liquidity over here before heading down to the lower first, which is at 32,500. It's actually at 32,400, so 32,4 to 5, which would be a very big breakdown, to be quite honest. From here, you do actually, if you're bullish, you want to see things move on from these areas pretty soon. But that would be below this big monthly area at $35,000 and into this daily redistribution pattern. So this was just around the Luna dump off. For those of you that were around during that time period, this was the redistribution on the daily. And I do have that marked. It's the only daily that I have marked on the support and resistance chart because it's the only daily worth of shit. Excuse my language. But that it really is right now. It's the biggest one. It was the big distribution or redistribution pattern after the breakdown from $35,000. So this was also where that monthly close open came in that broke the structure at 31.8. So that was this was the criteria, guys. You remember this 30,000 to 30,300 to 600 to 31.8. For those of you that have been watching this channel for a while, you'll remember this was a big area that we called out and talked about forever. I mean, we talked about it once 30K was hit, that this was the big area. And once this was broken, we were likely to see a massive leg up. And of course we did. So identifying key areas and the historical significance for those key areas is very important. And the next big key area is this monthly swing high. A close above this monthly swing high at 48,240. Of course, that gets above this now wick high rejection at 49K. And we're looking right up into the 50 to mid to low $50,000 region pretty quickly. We do have 2 weeklies of interest above this particular consolidation that's happening right now at 50,800 to 51,800. So there is a bit of a range. Now, of course, we call out 50K because it's a nice even round number. You're likely to see a lot of bear stops in that area, a lot of front running of that area, and a lot of excitement around that particular number. But realistically, the big one is going to be 50,800 to 51.8. You can call it 52 if you like. Some exchanges it is 52, but we are looking at spot price. Spot is going to be the driver in this market. Now there is a weekly swing high just above there at $53,000. So I would generally be looking on any moves past that $49,000 wick high. I'd generally be looking anywhere in the mid to low $50,000 region if $50,000 specifically can be recovered. That's the next big area of interest. And honestly, between there and that weekly swing high, between that 53,000, between there and the next monthly, it's air. So that means that it's probably going to very rapidly increase in price. When I say very rapidly, I would expect this area in the mid to low $50,000 to provide some decent resistance. But as we saw back here with this decent resistance around this daily, weekly, and monthly zone at 31.8, and then the nice resistance here at $35,000, I would expect Bitcoin to kind of slice through some levels, and halving coming up, all of that good stuff. A lot of preparation and positioning before then. So sharp moves are bacon, and we can see that this weekly is very low BBWP, and we're going to get rid of the RSI chart for right now. And you can see that the next big move on the weekly above the upper second standard deviation is going to kick off some serious expansion from really low levels. And you can see the last time that this happened was in June 2023. Well, in June of 2023, that was off of this retest of the basis band. Things went sideways and stayed cooled down for a little while until October, when we saw the big expansion up to the current levels. Well, we're getting right back into that kind of a look on the Bollinger Bands paired with BBWP. Now, I personally would want to see this compress a little bit more. And just so you know, I would not be looking for expansion to the downside from here. Not with this particular Bollinger Band look. That might change if we get some really tight compression on the Bollinger Bands. But from where price sits right now and the look of the Bollinger Bands, the upper second standard deviation is really the only way we're going to see significant expansion in a impulsive fashion, in my opinion, and that is above that $49.5 to $50,000 at the upper second. That's the only way it's going to happen from here, in my opinion. The only other way that we would see expansion, but I wouldn't be looking for it as weekly impulsive structure, it would be a retrace structure or a retest structure, would be on any move down below the basis band here at $38,000 to this lower first at around that $32,400, because the lower second is right in the thick of, months of consolidation. And that lower second is coming in above the higher low on the weekly, and that is at 26,500 on the higher low. It is slightly above there, and it's going to tick up yet again in the next weekly close here, and that is at 26,800, almost $27,000. I don't look at this as a structure that's necessarily going to take off just yet. I want to see some more compression, maybe another week or two. Even if it does test up towards the upper second, I wouldn't necessarily be looking for it to immediately just blast off to outer space. Same goes for any kind of mean reversion back to the downside. We have already seen that the basis is in play because Bitcoin has closed weeklies below the upper first standard deviation, and if it remains below here, then the basis is fair game. And quite honestly, the basis is going to be within range if Bitcoin does what I think it's going to do over the next few days, which you can kind of get the bias for based on what I just told you earlier about the shorter term time frame range. Now, the next big thing to keep in mind here is we are seeing compression on the 5 days. So this can be our early indicator here, but we have a close or two before we would see re-expansion in any meaningful way, in my opinion. Now, I would watch it coming into the next close, which is in 2 days and 6 hours. So we've got the rest of Wednesday, we've got Thursday, and then Friday, when we will see that close come in. And, it's going to update. If Bitcoin is trading below the upper first here, we're likely to see further compression of the bands here. Maybe BBWP goes sideways. But you can see very easily that if Bitcoin were to start trading back above the upper second and closing above there at the highs at just over $47,000, which is a monthly reclaim anyway, we would be looking at significant expansion. But I want to see BBWP up over the moving average for at least a close or two in order to, call it sustained expansion. In this case, to the downside, The lower second standard deviation is coming in right around that monthly at $35,000. If that were to break down, then we would see significant expansion of the Bollinger Bands. But in reality, I'd be looking into this consolidation, long form consolidation structure. Now, the next close is going to update the Stochh as well. We can see that that is at 45.5, which is a monthly level. So if that is reclaimed in the next couple of days, we will see momentum turn. And we can see that, I'd want to see at least one or two closes with expansion to start getting an early lead on what's happening on the weekly. Same goes for the 4-day here. Very tight compression here. You can start to see that Bitcoin closing above 42,869, nice, would lead to, a momentum shift. We see very low BBWP right here. Not yet ready to get expansion because it's coming off of the basis band. But this is a beautiful compression on the 4-day. Very easy. If it drops the lows at the lower second, that would be the deviation low at 38.5 at the monthly. We're going to get expansion to the downside. If we do see it closing above the upper second standard deviation, a little bit kinder here, as this is within the deviation of the highs here at around 46,300. We would begin to see expansion. And this actually is close enough to the SMA that it could, if it does start to close above the upper second or below the lower second, then we would be looking at, likely BBWP and the moving average turning up at the same time, giving us an early lead on the 5-day. This is going to be closing with the 5-day as well. So keep that in mind. 4-day and 5-day are going to be the things to watch coming into the end of this week. And of course, the 3-day is setting up as well. We already see the expansive posture getting ready here. We see BBWP is at a 17 over 17, 17.85 over 17.06. Now that just, that is volatility within the bands in the context of a compression phase. Now this is going to be even more kind to us in terms of telling us what to look for. Lower second standard deviation is coming in the low $40,000 region, right around 40,300. Now, if Bitcoin were to close the 3-day down here, we would still need to meet one other additional set of criteria for expansion to the downside, and that would be taking out that 38.5 wick low, which of course would bleed over into the 4-day, 5-day, weekly, and so on, right? Now, to the upside, the upper second standard deviation is coming in right around that monthly at $45,000. Again, we would need to see a close above here, and Bitcoin would need to meet one more additional piece of criteria on a close for the 3-day to maintain expansion. And that would be, at minimum, if it closes above the upper second, we are targeting the highs around 49K, but we would need to see a closure above there in order to be looking for sustained expansion to the upside. This is probably going to be the most exciting one to watch in conjunction with that 4-day and 5-day. We can see that it is setting up here. The 4-day is pivoted. Where did I say? It's pivoted at 42,869. Nice. 3-day is pivoted at $40,000, basically 40,100. This is closing with tomorrow's candle, so Thursday's candle. And then, of course, we have the 2-day, which is closing today. And as long as Bitcoin is closing above 41, we're looking at this, being upward pressure on the 2-day chart. If Bitcoin can close above the basis, that does make the upper first available. But you can see the 2-day is set up in a bit of a ranging posture. It's not quite ready yet for expansion. That does tell me that on the 2-day, if we were to see the highs spiked, probably initial rejections, come back to it for structure, at least in the lower term timeframes. And the same to the downside here, where the lower second is bracketing the lows at 39.5. Upper second is right below this high at 46.5, where that high is on a close coming in at 47. Closures above there, I would be looking for, again, expansion to that wick high at 49. And we need to see closes above there for maintained expansion or continuation to the upside. To the downside, lower second, any kind of closes in and around there or below there, make that wick low at 38.5 at the monthly available. Same criteria. We need to see a close below a wick low to look for continuation to the downside. Wicks can get crazy outside of these areas, but unless we see closes, we're not looking for sustained expansion. And right now, you know, it's basically setting up a range. And we can see that BBWP is at a 36, SMA is at a 53. So unless it aggressively spiked and closed outside of the upper second or lower second, you know, we're looking at this possibly baking a little bit more. But if we do see aggressive closes above or below those second standard deviations, then we'll probably see this tick up pretty aggressively in conjunction with that 3-day, which is very low, BBWP 4-day, which is very low, and then the 5-day, which is setting up along with that weekly. So looking really, really nice. We're getting the setups that we want to. We're getting those playable setups that we've wanted to see again after, you know, nice big move up. 12-hour is something to pay attention to in conjunction with the daily. Any close in this next 12-hour candle, which will close with the daily, above 42,900, will result in maintaining an upside posture on Stochastic momentum. And of course, we can see the nice tight compression here on the 12-hour. This is going to be the leading indicator for the daily. If Bitcoin starts to close above that upper second, it needs to take out that wick high. Of course, it's all the same stuff, right? It's still support and resistance, but we're looking at this from the context of volatility. If it closes above this upper second at 43,900 to 44K, well, guess what? We'd be looking at a breakout of resistance locally on top of a move up in volatility or expansion. So we see the contraction to expansion. I would still be aware of maintaining this expansion. Right now, BBWP is at a 0, SMA is at a 3. We're likely to see this bottom out and or, you know, BBWP get above that moving average before close today. If it does not get above the moving average before close today, which would be by closing above the upper second or by closing below the lower second, you would see this as well, which would be volatility expansion of the Bollinger Bands and BBWP. The lower second would still need to meet criteria. That's at 42,150 or so. It still need to drop this this low over here at around 41.8, 41.6 area. So keep that in mind. It does look as though it wants to try up and try for a breakout today. We'll see if it can do so while we're on stream or later today. If not, well, it's range until proven otherwise, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at Dixie. Let's dive into Dixie. Now, I made note of this big area up here at 104.25 to around 104.5. It's 104.55. We saw the spike to 104.60. This zone between these two highs. And we do see that Dixie has pulled back to the upper first standard deviation. Now, as long as Dixie is closing above the upper first at around, you know, 103.90 to 103.93 here, I would be looking at this zone above in the mid to low 104 region as viable. Right now, it's trading at 104.07, so it's already there. Upper second is likely going to update and be around the highs here at 104.55 to 104.60. If it does break out above there, the next big area is going to be by the upper third, right there at 105 to low 105 region. We do see expansion to the upside, but this is in the context of coming off the basis, keeping the bands pretty wide here and holding that upper first. If we do see the upper first dropped, I would be looking right back to around 103.5, 103.60 or so, to that basis at 103.40. If that area is lost, then I would be looking to the lows here somewhere around 103 by that lower first, which is coming in the upper 102 area. That's likely going to update to around 103 at close today. So that'd be my first take on it. If that area did fall apart, this consolidation, then I would be looking down to the lower first here at 102.5 to 102.30 or so. To the actual lows again at 102. Now, that's the spike low into this liquidity down here prior to the deviation. So one of the big things is after a nice consolidation breakout here and testing the prior structure, you know, it could fail, but more than likely it's going to try to keep heading up there after some more consolidation if it does not break out through this area. The daily is pivoted at 104.24, so it is still going to be a little bit of downward pressure, but it's more about that weekly. The weekly is going to do one of two things. It's going to reject this downtrending swing high and lower high on a close, and it's going to head back down. It's at the basis band on the weekly, and then it'll probably head back down to the 102.5 to 102 region, possibly even back to the lows there at 101 to 150 cents. Sorry. I don't really have an opinion as to whether or not that happens. We have to observe what's going to happen this week coming into Friday close. But the weekly is pivoted at 101.76. So if we do start seeing it trade back towards 102, that's where the weekly is in danger of losing its momentum and continuing its downtrend to test the local lows and then this big deviation low of this very, very big macro range between that 107 to 99.50, which we called this. In fact, I remember telling you guys that if it just deviated this range, watch out for a possible deviation, then this thing was going to get a throwback, and it certainly got its throwback, huh? A lot of people were looking way, way lower, and yes, we had those targets on the board, but it did not meet the breakdown criteria. It met the reclaim criteria for a deviation, and well, now we see that playing out. In a fairly bullish fashion at the lows if it can hold it. If it can't, then it's going to be a redistribution over the longer term time frames. Not going to call any of that until we see a breakout of 107 or a breakdown below 102, 101 area. Now we do have gold over here just consolidating. It is just in the forever range here between, basically $2,000 and $2,080. On the swings there outside of this massive swing up all the way from the low down here at 1930 to 2150 or so, 2146 here, then just chopping down, volatility is cooling down. So, we are looking at this as, likely setting up for a longer term time frame move pretty soon. It remains to be seen what that's going to look like, but I can give you a little bit of a preview, at least for the local range and what to watch for here. And that is, anything above the upper second at 2055, then we're looking, generally 2060 to 2080 around the highs here to the actual rejection on a close here. And to the downside, a little bit more precarious if we do start seeing 2000 dropped here by the lower second, 2005 to 2000 at the wick low. Then we're looking down to 1977, 1980 to 1965. That area is lost. Big bad moves for gold down much, much further into the low 1900s and maybe even upper 1800s over time. If we do start to see closes outside of this $2,080, I'd be looking 2100. Somewhere around this wick high, 2090 to 2100. Above there, I'm looking for this wick to get filled out in the 21 to 2150, maybe even 2200. As it stands right now, it's looking a little tired. We do see a Stoke flip down, $2,043 would turn that back up. Weekly is also down, but it's down in the context of a wider, longer term consolidation. So in this case, 2084, which is above the actual closes on the dailies. So it's going to remain pretty much it's going to remain down unless it starts closing above its local closing highs there, $2,077 or whatever it is. So let's go ahead and look at traditional markets. We do see that's nice volatility cool down. So the next move is going to be a pretty big one. We've got Dow back at the highs here. Very nice. Nice gap up. And of course, as long as it is above what? The upper first standard deviation, which has now moved up to 38,450, probably going to move up a little bit further to 38,500. Then the upper second is in play. Right now it is testing in and around the highs. If it can pass 38, 780, 362 here, then I would be targeting somewhere around 38, 8 to 38.9, possibly up into the 39 K region, and maybe more if it starts to close above that upper second. We'll have to come back to that on Friday. If it does lose the upper first, the basis is now just kind of coming into the bottom side of this swing low here at 38,100, sitting right there at 38K. Now, if that area was lost, it's right here at the consolidation part of the move up. I'd be looking at that as a strong bounce zone within the context of the lower term timeframes below the daily. If it was lost, then I would start to target these highs right here around where this consolidation low came in, and at around 37,800 to that lower first there at 37,600. It's 37,500 to 600. There is a little bit of a gap here. It was filled though. Back below there, and we'd be looking right towards this deviation low of this wider range here. It wasn't really a deviation because it didn't close this, but in terms of the tighter range, it was. But nice low structure there right by the lower second at 37,200 or so. Not my first take on what's going on. Obviously, it's trading near the highs. If it remains above that upper first, I'd expect the highs and higher to get ran, as I just spoke of. 38,572 is the momentum pivot. If it can close basically 38.7 here, it will turn that momentum back to the upside here. You can see that BBWP is also lining back up, but the moving average is turned against it. So you want to see consistent closes where BBWP is above the moving average to look for sustainability of the move. So a couple of closes above the moving average and the moving average heads back up. That's what you want to look for. That's only really going to occur aggressively if Dow starts trading back towards that upper second and above it. Right now, it's kind of looking at this as a growing range like what it did before, where it kind of holds on to the upper first and keeps pushing that upper second. NASDAQ higher highs, very nice. We can see that we have now hit our, damn it, not yet, almost our 17,800 target. That is the next big target. I mean, you could kind of call this already hit. But if we do see this pushing through that area, of course, 17,800 to 18K is what we're looking for. The upper second standard deviation is skating right below 1,800 at 17,930. I would expect this to update. You see the little bit of a pinch on the bands, and then the, the upward expansion. We do see BBWP cooling down while it's trading above the upper first, much like what we've seen before. If you see a cool down that's occurring where price remains above the upper first, we're looking at this to keep marching or grinding its way up with spikes above and spikes below that upper first. And that is, of course, as long as it's maintaining closes above the basis band, which is now above the deviation higher low here. It was a lower low swing, higher low close. This was a consolidation high. This kind of put in a double top on a close, but kind of didn't. I would call this more of a consolidation high. We were looking at this as a higher low in that regard from closing structure, because this was the last closing higher low. You're going to get a lot of argument about that. A lot of people like to look at the swing structure and just take, this was a downtrend. Well, then it was a deviation of this low over here and you got wrecked. And now it just took off to the other side and broke out above the high here at 17,665 and headed right to the zone of interest that we were talking about on Monday. Above there, of course, we're looking somewhere around, 17.8 to 18, and then come back to it, see how it does in terms of trying to grind out price up there. We can see Stoke has turned to the upside here on any closes above 17,540, and looking pretty good right now. There is still quite a bit of time left before close and post-market. So we've got SPY here, and SPY is making new highs, and we've nearly hit our 500-point target. 2 points shy. Damn it. But as noted on Monday here, as long as it was above the upper first, we're looking for it to keep grinding up, sideways and up take out the high at 496.05. We generally have a zone of 495 to 500. Above there, 5 points at a time. That's the rule. Take it 500 to 505, 505 to 510, 510 to 515. So next big zone above here is going to be 500 to 505. Beautiful, beautiful move so far. You can see the upper second standard deviation, of course, is right there at the 500 area. So beautiful. 494 is going to be the momentum pivot. And again, that's going to be all those upside targets that I just talked about are going to be viable as long as it's closing above the upper first standard deviation, which is coming in at 492. If that area is dropped, there is a bit of a zone there at 490 to 492. We saw liquidity grabbed around 490. There's also a closing high around 491. And then that upper first there kind of skating right across this order block candle here at 492.55. So I would say 490 to 492. If that area is dropped, then we're looking, a little bit down here towards these wicks and this big close open. Well, it was an open gap down open at 48 to the basis here at 484, 485 region, and possibly that close down there at 480 to 482. So we have 482 at the close to the support here at 480. Right now, it's making new highs. I would expect it to keep going as long as it's above the upper first here. And 494 being the pivot, that's what I expect. So I'll do some longer term time frame analysis in terms of like the weeklies and stuff for traditional markets on Friday. So we'll follow up with that. Let's go ahead and get back to crypto here. And we are going to take a look at Bitcoin. We'll go down to the DGen chart. And we'll do what we typically do. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chats here. I'm going to turn back on the tunes. And today we will take requests. So I do see a little less people than normal in the YouTube chat, but I have more of you over in the private chat area. What's going on over there, guys? All of you can't access YouTube? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, you're on the siloed network over there. Cool. All right. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and hit me up over there. Otherwise, go ahead and I'll take a few requests. Please, just one. Don't pepper me with requests of like, can you do this coin, this coin, this coin, this coin? Just one or two, but separate them. We'll try to get to. I'll try to get to more of them if we don't have too many requests. So let's go ahead and get the tunes back on here so we can cover for me reading. Yeah, that didn't work. Whoops. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and... Hello, Roca, No Name, Bobby. How you doing? I see there is now a few others that have joined a little late. If you want to go ahead and check, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below or above or to the side. And then go ahead and jump in chat. Yes, it's free to do. Let's look here. Ranging for a long time now. Move has to happen rather sooner than later. Yeah, but it's all in the context of, I think, a wider range. Still need to see those closures on the... I'd want to see those 2, 3, 4 day closures leading into that 5-day and weekly coming up. So those are going to be the ones to watch for context for expansion. Roca says no stop, straight to 72K. That would be pretty funny. Is it really bullish though? How much of Dixie and Bombay is from China? I don't know if China wants to get into Dixie right now or bond buying right now. There's probably a fair amount, but you got to think about it like this. They know that a Fed Fed pivot is coming. So maybe they get in some of the yield rates here, but there's also fear that the debt is unsustainable here. And even Powell is out there talking about the unsustainability the other day on 60 Minutes. So if I were China, I'd just try to pump the system and move into the CBDC as soon as possible if I were China, if I were running China. Now, of course, I'm not a proponent of CBDCs. I think you should, if they are being considered in your country, you should call your local representatives and or get involved yourself to try to put a stop to that. But they are collapsing in a way that we have not seen in a long time. I was chatting with a friend of mine who said they're going to collapse back into the Stone Age, and I don't really agree with that. There's a reason why they've been moving towards the acceleration of BRICS. So just keep an eye on things. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Let's go ahead. Bobby wants to look at ETH BTC. I would have a few more, but for the sake of your sanity, I'm not sure though. Well, I mean, if nobody else has any requests, we can always try a few others, but let's go ahead and take a look at ETH BTC, which I imagine is probably bouncing, but from where? Context is everything. Hey, you know what? Higher low structure on swings. So it's got a fair bit to run here if it wants to try. This is in the context of compression, so I do think it's limited upside as this rejected high up here at 0.059, 0.06 area. And if it does pass down below the lower first here at 0.532, sorry, I would be looking for a drawdown to the lows over here where the lower second's coming in at 0.051. In terms of momentum, it's coming off the lows, so it's if it can close above the basis, it can run. There's local resistance right here at this high, right around the upper first at 0.0575 or so. So I would watch that area between 0.057 to 0.06 basically by that upper second at that at the range highs there. Could it have the legs to do it? Sure, as long as it's trading above its as long as it's trading above the lower first there at 0.053 535 area, somewhere around there. The Stoke is pivoted at 0.532, so basically the lower first. So you do want to see it maintain closes above 0.352 to 0.355 or 0.35. Yeah, let's look at that. Yeah, it's skating right across that lower first, so don't want to see the lower first loss there. It's going to be at least a markdown into the 0.051 to 0.050 area, possibly even test the lows down there at 0.048. I'm not really looking at it like that. It does look like it wants to kind of go. What does a weekly look like? Weekly's up above 0.049, so 0.05 basically. Looking pretty good to keep it up there. Yeah. So far, could it bounce? Is it bottoming? Like, that's probably like the big question. Is it bottoming? And could be. Yeah, but above 0.049, 0.05, it's looking like it could, potentially set up to bottom here. But God, it's so ugly. What an ugly chart. If it does break out to the upside, it will no longer be ugly. On the monthly time frame, if it closes here or higher on the monthly, it's going to turn momentum, and above 0.06, 0.0614, 0.062, this thing's going to look pretty damn strong on the monthly coming off the lows. Yeah. And that weekly rejection at 0.06 is really nasty though. But it was a downtrend break. We are looking at the possibility of a swing higher low. Could set a closing higher low as well. So we could be seeing on the weekly a structure change. We have the break in place, and it breaks out above 0.061. It's gonna be a structure change on the weekly, and I would expect that to probably last until the end of the month, which could then set a low on the monthly. And that's going to be the big thing to watch out for. So that's what I'd be paying attention to, is this weekly, how this weekly closes into the monthly. If you're doing lower term time frame trades, I'd bring it to like a 4 hour and say like, that's expansion to the upside. It's holding the upper first. You should have got in on the move on the consolidation if you were trading it. 4 hour does look like it wants to at least head into a little bit more consolidation, but it really depends on if Bitcoin blasts off. If Bitcoin blasts off, you're going to see ETH USD probably take off, and then ETH BTC, kind of stay sideways for a little bit while maintaining structure. That's kind of where I'm at on that. It looks like a nice higher low though, so I wouldn't necessarily count this out. Nice swing higher, high trend breakout. Held support over here from the lows, and this close up in here, testing higher. It looks like it wants to test the local swing highs again at 0.55, 0.055. If it gets above there, it's we're looking 0.056 to 57 again, like I said, and then testing around those highs. So this consolidation, high structure to this low structure over here, which is the same as the daily. So looks pretty good so far. What's the 12 hour looking like? Yeah, the 12 hour looks beautiful. 12 hours getting really, really nice expansion. So, I would just keep an eye on, if it can regain 0.055 to 0.057, and we're looking up to 0.059 to 0.06 area again. Looks good. Looks good on the 12 hour. Just needs to maintain its breakout structure from the lows. If it drops them, bye-bye. All right, let's look. Hi, Sam. You're late. I already talked about Dixie. You can run it back. But I talked about Dixie and the implications for price there as well, and my thoughts on it for some of the longer term as well. Yeah, I can look at Link. Yeah, technically it is a higher high trend break. Yep. Now possibly higher low. Well, yes, it is, and it's that way on the weekly as well. And I would really pay attention to the weekly, monthly coming into the end of the month for sustained looks on pullbacks, right? If you are long scalping, because you want to know where the base is and where the base breaks down. Right now, it's forming some decent structure, and this is a trend break. It's not a clear trend break because of the failure was so harsh on the 29th, but for the daily at least. So I would just keep an eye on the 12-hour and under time frames, specifically the way the 4-hour fits into the 12-hour. That's what I'd be looking for. So let's go ahead and take a look at Link. Link's been performing pretty well lately, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't just hang out in the area that we talked about. Not much has changed since Monday. As I said, if it holds 18 to the upper first, it's likely going to keep trying in around 20. And it gets above 20, it's it's looking good to the upside. For right now, the upper first has moved up to 1767, which is right where this order block is on the daily. So it's probably going to be above it if Link closes like this today. This is the first swing high, and not even a closing high just yet, but a nice swing high put in after the breakout over here. So it's looking pretty darn good as long as it maintains above the upper first. 1750, 1770. I would say I'd take it to 18, this green line here. Green means go as long as it can get past the white line above it. The upper second is the primary target as long as it's trading, the primary upside target to the highs there, coming in at just under 20 bucks there at 1976. But that's, that's rolling in right in the mid to low $19 range. If Link does leg up above there, as mentioned, for deeper targets, we're looking at, just structurally, above 19 bucks, gonna look pretty darn good, because that's this close open over here. Close open high coincides with this close open low. So just to kind of help you visualize that. If you look at this low and this high, you got a pretty key pivot at around 1850, which is where it's trading. Roughly 1850. No, I'm sorry, I lied. It's not trading there. It's trading below there. It's 1950 to 55, right where we saw yesterday's spike high come in. This is a nice, last week's spike high come in. For the daily, rather, it's been playing around this area. It spiked it a couple times, closed above it, spiked up into the next big area at 1955 to, and you know what? 1955 is the high there. This close opens at 1883. My apologies. So it looks good. Gets above there. That's going to be a key area if it can get above there. Then we're looking into the mid to low $20 region. On the upper end, you could very easily see it run into 28 to 30 bucks, but I'd at first be looking mid to low $20 region. You can see the weekly upper third is up there at around 23. If it closes like this, we're probably, if it closes above the upper second, we're probably looking mid to low 20s and then come back to it later on the daily. For the daily though, if it drops the upper first, same criteria, looking right back to the range highs here. If it drops the upper first, which is, around 1750 to 1770, below there, drops that area, maybe a pit stop around, the low $17 range, but I'd be looking generally back to the basis here by this close open at around 16 to 1625 or so, maybe even 1650. Being a big zone to watch for. That's by the basis below there, and it's right back in the range, and generally targeting 14 to 15 bucks. But right now it looks pretty damn good. I do think that from a momentum perspective, close above 1885, which just so happens to be that big white line there, which is that important pivot on the weekly where we had a high and a low put in. Back above there, and momentum will turn back to the upside, so it could do for a little cool down. But the weekly is pivoted at $17, so keep an eye on the $17 range. Drops that, we're generally looking at the upper first being tested, which is at 1681. Of course, just below there, we're looking at the low $16 region again that we were just talking about. And the basis is fair game right back here, just above our yellow zone that I marked a while back, which was the liquidity zone. And, that's substantially lower at 1365. But for right now, it looks good, especially if it can break out above 20 bucks. then mid to low 20s it is. Not much has changed there. Let's go ahead and jump back to Bitcoin, and let me look over in the chats real quick. Grayscale. Yeah, I can look at Grayscale in a minute. Let's see. Got a little bit of a 15-minute pullback here. Nice high structure being put in. If it drops for Bitcoin, if it drops 43,400, looking somewhere around 43.3. This big spike high here. Let's put volume on just for a minute so I can see that one. Yeah, so it has not passed or closed above this big big rejection here on volume. So it did spike it again though. Next big area would be this rejection prior to moving on through it to test 43.8. Well, 43.7. What do we get up to here? Yeah, 43.680 to 43.7. I would venture to bet that some exchanges hit 43.8. But yeah, the next big area would be around the basis right now at 43.3. And as long as it's closing above that lower first here at 43,100 to 43K, it's looking pretty good to at least maintain structure from the low-term time frames. Hi, Baba. How are you doing? But yeah, let's go ahead. We can look at Grayscale. Nice consolidation swing structure. It's basically what we're seeing on Bitcoin. A lot of the pressure from a lot of pressure is being exerted because of the outflows on Grayscale, but it's starting to slow down. 36.37 is going to be the pivot there. It's about $2 above. A little bit more, 38.82. It is above the basis. If it starts to break out towards that upper first at 39.32, then we could potentially see 40 to 41 bucks by the upper second pretty quickly, and maybe even the highs there. You know, this is still very good structure. I like the consolidation around the basis, but it's setting up a range. So anything around $40.80. You know, I would be cautious. We need to see closes above there that can make it above this wick high here at 43.50. Above there, looking good. Probably see some decent expansion to the upside. Same for the downside, bracketing that lower second, so it looks just like Bitcoin on the daily. We'd be looking at 34.50 to 35. Below there, we would also need to see this wick low taken out at 34.31. But there's like lows right next to them, you know, 34 to, you know, possibly 32.50, 32 even are fair game, but it's setting up for a range at the moment. Looking at the weekly is a little bit of a different story. So if it is closing above the upper first this week, so coming into Friday, we can always check this. Just remind me, 37.80 is going to be the area that you want to see it close above. That makes the highs available again at the upper second, coming in at 44.25 actually. So it's above the highs of 43.50. So, and as long as it's trading and closing above this wick low at 34.31, you know, then we wouldn't necessarily be looking for the basis, but we can see that the basis is starting to come in line with this $32 low. So yeah, hope that helps there. 42.50 is still the momentum pivot on the weekly. Let's see what it is on like the 5-day. 42.61. 4 days, 41.43. So it's got to take out the highs to really start getting expansion. But this is going to be interesting, just like on spot price. The 3-day has the potential to turn. I would look for the close on Thursday coming into Friday. We'll take a look at this again. Just like I said, remind me. 38.95, so basically 39 bucks. is the momentum pivot currently. The 2-day is closing today, and it is turned up on closes above 36.46. So you can see the compression as well. And we are starting to see, because it is above the basis band and pushing that upper first, we're starting to see this get re-expansion ever so slightly. If it closes above here today, the highs on a close are fair game, 40, around 40 to 40.50, and then possibly the wick high there at 43.50 to 44k, $44. It's going to kind of mirror what's going on in Bitcoin, but to a lesser extent, and sometimes to a greater extent. But I like its structure; it looks fine. To do any of the other ones, you'd have to go really low term time frame. 4-hour structure is starting to build its consolidation after a breakout from the lows. Could it retest the lower second at 23.17, 23.20? Absolutely. But I'd be looking more towards the highs here, because if those break, we're going to see a nice break back to its local highs, and possibly higher where it opened at. And that's coming in at 25.54. Above there, we're looking at this swing at around 27 to the actual open wick high there at 29.50 to $30. Of course, that's going to coincide with spot price heading up and probably breaking out above 44.5 region. Go test those monthlies. That's what I'd be looking for. Let's go back to the DGen chart. Oh God, the 30-second double bottoms coming in. Moon time. Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on the 30-second chart right now. Am I going to be doing, talking about options? Well, options aren't live yet, so no, not until we start seeing options approved for them. Because I want to at least be able to show you option spreads and give you examples to talk about and stuff like that. I mean, I could do like regular stocks, but most of you are not interested in that. And for those that are in the field, like you guys over there who work with options and provide liquidity and do stuff like that, whichever end of that spectrum you are on, you already know this stuff. It's more for the benefit of those in the public chats that don't know this stuff. And the interest would be how to utilize options plays on like BlackRock or Grayscale or any of the other ones. So they do need to be approved for the spot ETFs. They did submit, so you will likely see options go live pretty soon. But they won't necessarily go live for every brokerage firm at the same time. Some firms are going to be a little bit different. So if you're retail, or I know you guys aren't retail, but for people in the retail side of things, they would have to either find a broker that's offering options or, wait until their broker offers them the chance to trade options. Sometimes they'll do a little bit of lag so that liquidity can get in there on the options side of things for those contracts on that particular asset, or in this case, the ETF wrappers. Wait, is it live already? You're kidding me. Options aren't live, are they? Let's go ahead and check on, no, they're not. Yeah, I didn't think so. No, they're awaiting approval still. Yeah, I would say give it like March, April, May timeframe, if I had to guess. But I'll update you guys, and we'll cover options, basics of options, calls, puts, buying versus selling a call or a put, what that actually means and what it does. We'll talk about the Greeks, how to read the spread, and stuff like that, and then some general common options plays. Yes, in 0 day. No, I'm not going to be talking and teaching people how to do 0 day expirations. No, that's a game that you don't really want to play, especially on the retail side of things, because when the market turns, you're done, and you got to be careful because you can end up owing money. And unlike firms or prop shops in this case, you ain't gonna be able to go to somebody else for help. Like, hey, can we get some liquidity? Can we borrow a little bit of liquidity? Yeah, it's not gonna happen for a retailer. Yeah, because most are just gonna leverage up and buy 100 contracts and they get absolutely wiped if they were doing that. Yeah, let's just visit real quick some quant stuff. Taker buy sell ratio is a little high right now, so local pullbacks expected. We're already starting to see a consolidation, so that's, you know, I would be looking for this to come down a little bit and then see where it ends up later. If we're looking at open interest, it is, you know, it's around the highs for the local range. It's not really anything too crazy. If we're going to see a breakout, I'd want to see it on the daily for open interest. And again, open interest, you want to see it rising, and it is. It's still in a downtrend though. In the more macro time frames, smaller uptrend in the daily time frame right now. And we want to see higher highs on open interest result in higher highs on price as well. And then if it gets overheated, you know, it gets rejected. But right now it's not in danger, in my opinion, just yet. It's still trading around where it was at $35,000. So it's a level for open interest. Yeah. Open interest at 11.55 bill. We're looking at that, you know, somewhere around where this high came in at 35 to 38,000. Which is where the low came in. So, and it made a low at 38.5 and it made lower lows than when it spiked that area on the highs. So that's your spot markup. Yep. And for a little while you saw Binance there. It did flip CME. Not necessarily what I want to see. I want to see CME trading above Binance in terms of open interest. But the degens have entered the chat basically and are probably longing the crap out of everything, if I had to guess. Trying to push things through this overhead resistance and grab the liquidity up there before the big boys can. But the big boys will win this round, I suspect. We did see CME up over Binance earlier. And, you know, I'm not really sure. We had a liquidation where most of the liquidations, yeah, were coming off of Binance shorts. So we did see that OI wipe out there, result in a lot of OI coming off the board, mostly from Binance, at least locally. When I say a lot, it's local. We had OKX, and Durbit not doing anything these days, apparently. Their options contracts are garbage lately. But yeah. The King 30-second double bottom chart leading the way here. 43.5, 43.6 area. Beautiful thing. But yeah. I think that's going to do it for me today, guys. We covered just about everything that I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, I'm going to give it a moment. Go ahead and get them in the chat here. And if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. So I'll give you a moment to catch up. Let me know in the public chats, private chat, wherever, if you do have any questions. Yeah, no. No, thank you for asking. He's feeling better. I'm the one that got sick now. Yeah. Joy of having younger kids. They bring home everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Car updates. No, I'm not gonna out myself for the types of vehicles that I drive. No, I know you know. That's because you know who I am. Yeah, no, I'm not going to be divulging personal information on the internet publicly. I'd like to remain anonymous. Yeah, just an anonymous guy giving you TA alpha on a regular basis. Yep, that's it. Landy's here to help. Oh God, I know what you're referencing. No. Don't tie me in with that. But yes, I am willing to assist people in understanding how price works and how to chart and how to perform technical analysis so that they can make informed decisions when trading. Yeah. No, the take or buy sell ratio, when you start seeing it on the high side, in between the dailies here, and this is, you can go to CryptoQuant, it's free. You can get a free account. You get the take or buy sell ratio. It's under derivatives on the charts menu. And when you see it above like 1.08 to 1.14 area, in and around there, you're probably looking at that to start to drop, and then price usually will take a little breather and or start to reverse. And on the low side, anything below like an 8.88 on the take or buy sell ratio, which is sellers out sellers hitting the bid basically, whereas they're lifting the offer here, hitting the bid down here at under 0.88 or around 0.88, you're likely to see it start to get picked up. Or another way to look at it would be sellers are getting exhausted. Above a 1.08 to 1.14, 1.15 area, you're looking at buyers probably getting exhausted. It's hanging out in between, like it's at like a 0.9 or a point, 105, 106. You're probably looking at a breather, and then you're looking for the extremes. So above a point, it doesn't mean that it won't drop from here, but the extremes would be like above a 1.08 and below a 0.88. Those would be your extremes. You still want to pair it with everything else. It's just a confluence. So you still want to use, trend, support and resistance, volatility, which create momentum, and then of course monitor momentum. I mean, you can see that Bitcoin's struggling at the low side of this consolidation at the highs in the deeper half of the $43,000 range. So if it can get through there on compression, then you're probably looking at 43.6 to 43.650. Above there, we're looking for a run back to 43.670 to 680, and then 43.7 at the highs here locally. Maybe a push to 43.8 here on spot. But otherwise, it's all about support, resistance, and then how that is matched up with volatility levels and support and resistance. It can stay overbought or oversold for extended periods of time. So if this is remaining above the basis band at around 43.560, for instance, it's going to continue to consolidate even down to the lower first here at 43.540, right around this wick low for like the 30-second chart. But this is, a nice move up. It's a trend break on a close, on a swing higher low structure, and now a little bit of a consolidation. So if it takes out the highs, you're looking at the upper second there, 43.600 and up. If it takes out the low side, it starts breaking down. Specifically gets below that lower first, lower second area on the compression, then you're looking for downside expansion into support. Reclaim this wick low on a close over here in this structure as well. So, and that's at 43,550, which is now where the lower first is. So, want to see that area maintained for something like a low-term time frame degen chart, but it works, you know, the same way on the higher term time frames. Just, you know, map out what you're looking for. Trend first, support and resistance, volatility. All three of those go hand in hand, and those create momentum, which you can use as a this is an extreme territory, high or low, overbought or oversold, and then which direction is momentum headed from those areas. Yes, there will also be a basics of TA course coming up. Look, there's just a lot of stuff going on personally, so but that is coming. I've had to rewrite it also a few times based on, you know, just kind of understanding what newer people need to understand as a good solid foundation of knowledge before, you know, getting into some of the deeper subjects. Yeah, that will also be something that's going to be heavily talked about in addition to options. Yep. Cool. I think that's going to do it for today though, guys. I am going to leave the music on for a little bit here. I do know that some of you like to kind of go through your charts as I end the stream here and kind of review some of the things that we talked about. So I'll leave that up here. I'll give it about, we'll give it to noon my time, which is about 7 or 8 minutes. And yeah, I apologize. No staring at charts yesterday because I was not feeling very good. Hopefully tomorrow there will be a staring at charts pre-recorded video, kind of follow up some of the things that we talked about today before heading into the Friday live stream. And then of course we will have a live stream on Friday. But you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.